Gentlemen, another week, another LA Galaxy player talking about Zlatan. The only difference is this LA Galaxy player wasn't on the team when Zlatan was on the team. These comments from Emiliano Insua, outside defender, just added to the team in January, speaking to Argentine radio. Quote, "Here they say he wasn't a good teammate, and that is why he left. As a player, he was very good, but as they told me, he was not a good colleague." Insua also continued that, quote, he doesn't know him, but he says Zlatan has a, quote, strange personality. Ale, I'll start with you. What do you think about another story from a Galaxy player, considering the fact that this Galaxy player wasn't even around?
What it tells me is that they're still talking about Zlatan. They can't get enough. It's a guy that clearly left a mark in that locker room and left some egos heavily bruised. And here's the thing. I would have a real issue with Zlatan and Zlatan's behavior if he had made this a specific point in bruising the egos of MLS players. But if you look over the course of his career, this is a behavior to different levels of it and to different degrees that he has had in big time locker rooms and against big time managers. And he has had disagreements with other superstars, and he has had disagreements with other players with much bigger names and much bigger players than the ones that he had with the LA Galaxy. And so it is very much within his personality and within his makeup that he's going to show up and he feels like he is bigger than life, even in a locker room like Barcelona's locker room, even in a Inter Milan locker room. So if he felt bigger than life in those locker rooms, well, you can imagine that as he walks into the LA Galaxy, he definitely feels bigger than life. And I would also have to say that given his productivity and given the goals and given his performance, I would walk into that locker room feeling bigger than life too. If you had a problem with Zlatan, and if you really had an issue with the way that he was treating you or the way that he was talking to players, there's a way to approach this. And even for a guy like Zlatan with his 300 million in the bank and his island, you can go to him and you can approach him and you can actually have this conversation face to face. And a guy like Zlatan, even if he is bigger than life, would actually, I think, appreciate the fact that there was somebody big enough that respect himself big to the point to where you would stand up to the guy and say, hey, enough, man. If you don't like something, go and address it with him. And then you can have the back and forth with him. And at that point, he would walk off thinking a little bit better of the guy who just had that conversation with him than the guys who go behind his back and get in the corners and get in the clicks and wait until he leaves the locker room to start saying, oh, he was terrible. Oh, okay, great. You know what's the best way of dealing with the bully? You go and face the bully, right? You know, you go and face him and say, hey, man, what's up? What's up? What's going on? Look, I am who I am. I got the skill level that I have. There are certain things that I don't do so well, but there are certain things that I can help with. And so let's try to maximize those things and let me help you out on the field. And that's it. And you move on with your life. You're not trying to be something that you're not, but you're demanding the respect of a teammate. That is not too much to ask.
Herc, I'm with Ale here. I mean, the thing that jumps out to me the most is not that Insua said something. The fact that they're talking about him so much that a guy that wasn't even around is coming out and talking about it on Argentine radio.
Yeah, it's funny because Ali mentions these bruised egos, and then he mentions the Galaxy, and I think he's absolutely right. There comes a moment where the Galaxy's top dog, these players think they're at the top of their level, top of their game because they play for the Galaxy, and then here comes somebody else, a different type of level, a different type of animal, and Ali mentioned it. It's not that he was being this way with Major League Soccer players or the Galaxy locker room. This is who Zlatan's been his whole career. He's publicly criticized Pep Guardiola, for God's sakes. So Zlatan being Zlatan, and you know this. Now, there comes a time where, yes, you must stand up for yourself, but do it when he's there. Don't all of a sudden wait for him to leave and say, you know what? He treated us really bad. He was a bad teammate. What about when he called you fiats? What about when he publicly criticized you? Every time he berated you on national television, international television, did you say something? When he physically pushed you out of a wall and treated you like a 13-year-old little kid, what did you say? Nothing. These players, when he would berate them in front of everybody, fans, press alike, Nothing. Now, we've mentioned this before, the sour grapes that comes with Zlatan. It's very easy to say something about Zlatan when he's not there. There's a reason you don't say anything when he's there, because he's Zlatan, and not only does he prove it with his mouth, he proves it with his play. He was 60% of their offensive output for the LA Galaxy, 52 goals in 2 seasons. I mean, at times it felt like he was the only one playing. Whether you agree with that or not, the way they played was catered for him, fine. But he was the only one doing anything of note. Zlatan was frustrated. Zlatan was Zlatan. He said what he said. But where were you? Why wasn't anything said? And I agree with you. It's very easy to take shots now that he's gone. And there have been only a handful of players, maybe 2 or 3 players that actually on the field in a game stood up to him. I could think of maybe one right now. It's a Real Salt Lake defender, and he had his moment with Zlatan in the box at the now Dignity Health Sports Park. It was maybe Michael Bradley and that back and forth they had in that game briefly. But other than that, who else spoke up? Who else did anything? Who else showed anything? Nobody.
You guys have both mentioned that this isn't new for Zlatan, that he did this throughout his career. Ale, how come you feel like we're hearing so much fallout now that he's left MLS?
Well, part of me thinks that some of these guys in that locker room hadn't experienced an ego like that before, a powerful personality like that before, who will get in your face and will say the things that he, I imagine, said to these players on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. And so if you haven't had those experiences and somebody shows up through that locker room and is willing to point the finger at you, and to the point to where it becomes second nature for that guy to say time and time again, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're not this, you're not that, I'm better than you, I'm bigger than you, and you don't have a counteraction to that, and you don't have any sort of experiences to draw back on, then it is clear to me that a lot of these players would have become intimidated. And it's something that I've said before, is that with guys like that, if you start taking a step back, if you start giving away ground, they're going to keep coming forward. And you have to be able to show up for yourself and stand up for yourself and say, all right, man, enough. Okay, enough. I get it. You're the greatest. You're the best. We're going to need you to score some goals. We're going to need you to win games. But I don't need any of this. All right? So relax. Okay? All right, bro? Relax. Step back. And the moment that you take a step forward, I think that's when Zlatan says, all right, he's got something about him. There's a personality about him. There's some temperament. There's character about this guy. I leave that guy alone. Let me go pick on the other guy who's taking a step back. And I think there were too many players, without having been inside the locker room and merely on the perception that I get from the outside looking in, that there were too many players in that locker room that perhaps were too quick to take a few steps back and allow Zlatan to grow into the personality that he became within that locker room. And once you allow him to dominate you and just cast a shadow over you, it's impossible to get rid of.
Herc?
Listen, you let Zlatan be that way, he's going to continue to be that way, and that monster's just going to grow. I'll share very quickly with you a story. Gucci Onweyu, he famously got in a fight with Zlatan Ibrahimovic in Milan in those days. And I remember asking Zlatan about it later, and he said, it was like fighting. It was like a heavyweight boxer coming at you and having a fight to him. He was like, I ended up with a broken rib. If they don't pull us apart, one of us would have died. I asked Gooch about that. He goes, what did he say? I said, one of you guys would have died. And he goes, yep, pretty much. Did he mess with you ever again? Nope. Nipped in the butt. That's where it stopped. So there is that respect factor where if you stand up to the bully, as Ali says, maybe you can stop it there. But if all you do is roll over, if all you do is encourage it more, if all you do is demonstrate that you are who he thinks you are, then it's just going to keep growing. Now, he's not here anymore. It's very easy for you guys to say it's a better situation for us because we don't have Zlatan. He was so negative to us. He was this and that. But on the field, in the field, I should say, your level of play was what it was. It hasn't gotten better. So who was right?
We'll see, and I'm sure this isn't the last story we'll have on Zlatan Ibrahimovic. It's May 1st right now, and I think we've done one of these each week in the month of April.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.